Hello, dear friends. This is Grandma Jeannie. Welcome back to my workshop. I am going to work on a dollhouse, and this is something I've not worked on for, gosh, it's been a couple of months. I've had a busy couple of months. So I'm in the mood to work on this dollhouse, and I've got two reasons why. Or maybe three reasons. Reason number one, I don't think I've ever had this house completely apart, and it's been a while since I've taken a house apart here on a video. So I'm going to show you again how to take these houses apart. Number two, I've worked on this house a little bit, but as I look back in the corner here, you probably can't see, but it looks like it needs a little cleanup back there, maybe a little paint touched up, and I want that to be really nice. And number three, I have a friend that would like pictures of these floors. Now, I have taken pictures of floors of a house like this before, but that house wasn't it wasn't really in the best condition. I think I could get some better pictures of these floors. So I'm going to take it apart, clean it, touch it up. Then I think I'll put it together, but put it together loosely because I think this house is going to be available for sale. And of course, they're a lot cheaper to ship if they're apart. Before I do anything like that, I want to remind you this is a Marx house. It was made in the 1950s or 1960s. It's commonly called the Tin Soldier house because the motif here in this nursery has got a tin soldier on the floor, a little hard to see, and also tin soldiers on the walls there in the nursery. So it's commonly called by doll collectors the Tin Soldier house. Let's do a quick reminder how I take these houses apart, and then I'll show you. I like to use a steak knife. This is the steak knife out of my silverware set, and I like it because it's pointed. It's not super sharp, but it's more pointed than a butter knife, so I think that's nice. And I'm going to use that to pry under these tabs. For instance, right here, pry under those tabs, lift them up, and then gently pull all the pieces apart. I got it apart. Now that took a little longer than I thought because I think these houses, when they were originally sold back in the 1950s, 1960s, came flat in a box and somebody had to assemble them. So I always imagine some poor dad on, Christmas Eve up late trying to put these things together. And they had instructions and so on. Now, I don't know if any of them were ever factory assembled. I don't know the answer to that. But every once in a while, you'll come across one where these tabs, instead of just being bent down at right angles and slid down into the little slot, they're actually curved and curved up to really lock those floors in. And this house had that. So it took me a while to get those pried open so I could get that out. Now I used a skinny nosed pliers to get under there and get that up. And after I got it started, then I took my steak knife and kind of pushed hard to get that as flat as I could to get those out of there. I forgot to give you my disclaimers. Number one, be careful, don't get cut. Don't ever try to jab where you might have your hand in the way. You might get poked with your knife or whatever thing you're using. Maybe it's a screwdriver. The other thing, kind of on a slimmer line, if you're prying in here, be careful and don't let it suddenly go down and scratch your wall. That's unfortunate if you damage it that way by taking it apart. So those are my disclaimers. Be careful. Be careful with yourself and be careful with your house. Now that I have this apart, I will take my pliers and I'm going to straighten those out a little more. So when I go to put those back together, they won't be quite such a bear. I'm going to try to make them flat. They'll still be bent a right angle from the floor to the prong, but they won't have that curve on them. So I'm going to go through and kind of straighten those out. It won't be such a bear to get back together next time. So I imagine, some father, maybe, really ambitious, taking his pliers and curling those up to make that hold together really tight. Not necessarily a bad idea, but now that I want to take it apart, it makes it a little harder. Now these bottom tabs, hooking the bottom floor into the side walls, are not bent like that. So I should be able to pretty easily get my knife under there and pry them up a little bit. I'm really glad I took that apart. There are just a few little areas down here that need cleaned. Right here, the tab had been loose and it scratched that up. So I want to touch that up, make that nice looking. I'll do a little cleaning. I think I've cleaned it once, but it's not very dirty. There's a few other little spots down in here that we'll touch up. Down in here, maybe there's a little bit of tarnish. Touch that up. the one I could see, look how you can see now how clearly that needs to have a little sanding done and a little painting done and maybe even a little cleaning, and that will be good. Otherwise the house is in pretty good shape. The stairs has again a spot there where it's like been scratched off, that white, so we'll fix that up. Although I think that's kind of behind that floor, but still we'll touch that up and make it look nice. But stairs are in good shape. Could use a little bit of paint right through there. All right, next we're going to clean it, and then we'll do those few little touch-ups. And then we'll probably put it back together, but it'll be a very loose putting back together, because if I sell this, it's going to have to come apart again for shipping. So when I clean this, I always spray directly on my paper towel, and I use a non-sudsy cleaner. This is Spray 9 cleaner. Actually, my Spray 9 cleaner ran out, and I put Awesome Cleaner in there from the Dollar Tree. They both are a very fine product, but I happen to like this sprayer better than those sprayers from the Dollar Tree. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it a quick wipe off. I have washed this house off before, but because it wasn't apart, I missed a few of those little spots. So let's give it a good cleaning. I don't like to spray right on the house because you can get moisture back in these rolls, the rolls of metal, and if you get moisture in there, that could cause future rust. This is that bottom of that upstairs floor, and there's a couple of spots there that I'll probably put a little paint on them just so they're, you really can't see that when you play, but when they take it apart, they would see that, and I want to make sure it looks as good as possible. If you get nothing else out of this video but this tip, it is going to be worth it for you. Here's my palette. Now this is just a cutting board that I wasn't using as a cutting board anymore, but I cover it with like wax paper or parchment paper, and then when I'm ready to, after I've got it painted up a lot, I can just pull that off, put a new piece on there, and I don't even have to wash it. So I'm going to pull this off, throw it away, and put a new piece on there. That has saved me a lot of time. So we're ready to go. I also have a cup of water sitting over here to rinse my brushes out in. I've got 3 or 4 different sizes of brushes that I like to use, kind of a small and a medium, and then one that's just a little bit bigger and a little bit blunter. So we're going to start with kind of this medium one. It's smallish, not teeny, but smallish. And we're going to do the white stuff first, and I'm going to go through every piece and touch up those little white spots that I showed you. But when you do this on a vintage dollhouse, I call this color Dollhouse White, which means it will not be bright white. Remember, these houses are like 70 years old, and depending on where they've been stored and so on, they're not going to be bright white. So they're going to be some color of off-white. So I'm going to start with a little bit of white, and then I'm going to put just a little dab of brown in there. And I'm going to show you what I do with that brown. I put it over here to the side. And in order to get just a little bit, I put my brush in the brown. And then I kind of tap it off so I don't have so much brown on there. And then I take that over to my white and mix it up. And then now it's a little bit of an off-white. And if it needs to be a little browner, I will touch that up. Now this paint tends to dry a little bit darker than it is when it's wet. So if it goes on, it's a little bit light, that's fine. We'll do another coat. Plus, a lot of these are going to take like 2 coats anyway, depending on, how dark. Like if you're down to bare metal, it's probably going to take 2 anyway, 2 coats. And I can tell you that is just a little bit light. But let's let it dry. We're going to do 1 coat, and then we'll go back, make that just a little bit darker, and then we'll do our color correction coat as our final coat. I needed to make some more white, and I wanted it to be a little darker. So I put my new white here and then tapped my brown into there. And I used that spot on my palette to help me decide if I was just making it a little bit darker, and I am. So that's how you can adjust your shade just a little bit. Use that wet spot on your palette. And remember, you really can't tell until it's dry whether or not you've got the best color match. Now this is my second coat, and it's really looking pretty good. But again, I will let it dry and then I will double check. I like to even do these tabs. Now they don't show once it's put together, but if I sell this and somebody buys it, and then, I think they would like that tab to look nice and clean and not look old and grubby or dirty or whatever it looked like. I've got most of the white done, but I wanted to stop and show you one spot that a lot of times is missed. A lot of times around these windows, it'll be like kind of tarnished like, or there's like a little rust down in there. So when I get my white out, I like to touch those up, make that look nice and clean. Um, you know, people my age understand things are vintage and they're old and they've been around and they've got a story to tell. But if you have grandchildren or young people playing with these and they see stuff like that, they think, oh, that's dirty. And then, they don't want to play with it. So, those younger people have a different way of looking at things. So I always like to make that look just as nice as I can. I've worked on a lot of these spots, but I thought you might enjoy seeing this one because it's going to make quite a drastic difference, I think, to get all those little scratches covered up. And again, it's probably going to take 2 coats because that was pretty dark through there. So even if you lose a little of the detail, that's okay because this is going to be very high near the ceiling of that first floor. In fact, it'll probably be covered up by that floor that fits right here. But again, for assembly purposes, it makes it look a lot better. And also, if you would happen to peek up in there, you would see that it looks good now. All right, that's that bottom part of that upstairs floor. So if anybody looks up in there now, it doesn't look dirty. It looks, cleaner, well maintained. Doesn't look like new, but it looks well maintained. All right, so there's another technique I want to show you before we move on to our third. I have done this in the past with Sharpie markers, but I've also got a nice set here of alcohol markers, which the advantage is that there are lots and lots of colors to these alcohol markers. But you can certainly use Sharpies and give it a try. This has a few light scratches. Perhaps you cannot even see them, but I'm going to try to run over that just quickly with my alcohol marker and see if I can fill that in a little bit, kind of camouflage that. That was very easy to do and worked just perfect. I've got a couple other walls I'm going to do this to, a couple of other colors as I've gone along. I've noted spots with little bitty scratches, and I'm going to touch those up also. Okay, I got the those little scratches touched up. I also put a little bit of yellow paint here on the edge of this kitchen floor so it looks nice. So we're down to this last area here, and it was the one that I kind of could see. It was behind the stairs, so I really didn't see it very well. But because this is, when I touch it, it is rougher, or I can feel it feels like that rust is on top of the paint, and I want it to be level with the rest of this. So I'm going to sand that top part off, that corrosion. It's like corroded through there. So I'm going to sand that off. I use a little piece of sandpaper. I use a pretty fine grit. This is a 180 grit, no, 220 grit, and the bigger the number, the finer the grit. So it's pretty fine. And I'm just going to use a little tiny piece, and I'm just going to make little circles there where that's rough. And then after I sand that off, I will wipe it down with a damp cloth again to get that rust dust off of there. That feels much more level now. It won't really be smooth because it's lost its finish there, but it feels a lot more level with the painted area next to it. really small areas like this, I probably will not sand. And you want to do minimal sanding because you will remove the paint. So if I sanded like over here, then I'd have to touch up the paint over there too. And I really want to just touch up minimal amounts of paint. And it was a good idea to put a paper towel under me because you do get some considerable rust dust when you do that. And it makes a mess on your work area. After you have that sanded as much as you think you want it done, take your damp cloth, your paper towel, and then that very same cleaner, and just spray it on your paper towel and wipe that rust dust off, and then we'll be ready to paint. Let's clean up our work area. This is all going to be garbage. And then we'll get some paint mixed up and we will get some paint on there. Now I've gone down, you can see it looks a lot better. It's lost a lot of that rusty color, and it's a much darker, like a black now. And some of that it's probably hard for you to see, but we've gone right down to the metal. So this is probably going to take at least 2 coats, maybe even 3 coats of paint. Now I've mixed up some paint. I use antique white and brown and a little bit of dark green because I know from experience, although this looks like gray, it's more of a taupe or a greenish tinted taupe, and I know that because I've painted floors like this similar before, so I kind of know that from experience. So I've already got some mixed up and I've started to fill that in, and you can see that's a pretty good paint match. So let's fill in all that dark area, cover it up, and then we'll go back and see how the color match is. Do we need to be a little lighter or a little darker? The other thing is there's a little bit of a texture on this, a little bit of, it's not just one flat color. So after I fill this in with this greenish taupe, I'll go back over it with maybe a couple of other shades and kind of make it look a little bit more like this. So it's not just one big flat blob of paint where I painted. I did add a little more green and brown in there and darken that up. And you can see it's just almost too dark now. But that's okay because I'm going to go back over it with probably just a little bit of a lighter color. But let me get this bigger spot darkened up. Then we'll go back and put some highlights back on there. And then we'll decide how it looks then. Another nice technique is after I paint it, sometimes I take my finger and thin that paint out or smudge it out just a little bit. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Now I got out my square-ended brush and I've used this a lot, so it's been, kind of bristly on the end. And then I could use that to kind of lightly tap some lighter colors and darker colors on there to give that a little bit of that same texture. Now this will be at the back of the house behind the stairs, so it won't show a lot. But if somebody were to see it or when they assemble it, it'll look good. It'll look well maintained. The painting is all done. I am confident that this house looks as good as it's ever going to look. It's just beautiful. My next step is I measure all of these rooms. So I've got the dimensions, a record of the dimensions, and then I'll take pictures of each room, each floor, each wall. And I've done that before, but the one I did it for before, I think I've got the painting looking a little better on this one. So I'm going to do that for my friend. Then I'm going to come back and I'm just going to show you how I'm going to loosely put it back together again. We've got all the walls measured and photographed inside and out. It's time to put this house together. I'm going to do it really fast because you've seen me do it before. But let me tell you the steps and then I'll put it together in fast motion. Remember, I'm not going to hold it together real tight. I'm not going to bend down the tabs. I'm going to hook the side walls onto this big piece. This is the front of the house, and then I'm going to put the bottom floor in, and then I'll probably put the little walls in the base on the first floor, and then I'll put the little walls in here, and lastly I'll put the roof on, and we'll have to put the upstairs floor in too. Now you'll see me, I'll probably use some tape, some masking tape. I like to use blue masking tape to help me hold stuff together while I'm assembling so the walls don't fall down. And I like to use blue because then I can easily see it and remove it after I'm done. There you go, dear friends. It's put together at least loosely. I'm not going to bend down those tabs. It is beautiful. This house has not looked this good since Christmas of about 1955. It's been updated. It's been touched up. It's been straightened out just a little bit. It looks beautiful. It is ready to go to a new home. Thanks so much for joining me. As always, remember you've got a friend here in Iowa, and Grandma Jeannie loves you.